Well, it's official, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is easily the worst movie I have seen this year. Not only is the movie an overblown piece of shit with unlikable characters, bloated action set pieces that never end, and dogshit writing filled with contrivances and plot holes everywhere, but it buries the legacy of one of cinema's greatest action heroes of all time, turning Indiana Jones from a smart, confident, and strong man to a cowardly, weak, and pathetic loser who by the end of the movie wants to kill himself.
That's just sad.
They chose to write him like this because Lucasfilm only has one story to tell. Luke Skywalker was sad and old, so he had to be replaced by a younger brunette woman. Willow was sad and old, so he had to be replaced by a younger brunette woman. And now Indiana Jones is sad and old, so he had to be replaced by a younger brunette woman.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Indiana is not the main character, it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge who is the star, and we all know as to why. Kathleen Kennedy, the constant failure who has destroyed every franchise she has been put in charge in, has come out and said that she wants to push her self-insert as the new Indiana Jones going forward.
Fuck off.
They even gave her a brown short round as well, who is just as unlikable and as horrible as she is. Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character is one of the worst female protagonists of all time. She is up there with Rey, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk and Galadriel. She is an evil, smug Mary Sue and an all-round unlikable cunt. Now, if you think I'm being too harsh, then you haven't seen the movie, because there are dozens of examples of her acting like a complete and utter bitch to everybody she meets. She is also better than Indiana Jones in every way possible. She is smarter than him, tougher than him, and anything he can do, she can do better. She has also been written to be so attractive that men everywhere are willing to kill for her, despite the fact that she is not attractive at all. So clearly this is just more evidence that she is a self-insert from the writers. Next up we have Mads Mikkelsen, who plays a Nazi chasing after the Dial and is the major antagonist of the story. Unfortunately, his grand plan is very stupid and would never work, which only ruins him as a character. Mads gives a good performance like he usually does, but he is bogged down by a dogshit script that makes his character a complete fucking moron. There are numerous times where Mads has Indiana Jones dead to rights, but for some reason he does not kill him, when he very clearly should.
Sure, you could kill me with your gun, but are you willing to try something much more elaborate and unnecessary?
Not just that, but every time the group manages to escape him, Mads is somehow able to track them down and teleport right next to them in mere moments. These are just a few examples of all of the characters in the movie being terribly written, but there are a few other problems I'd like to mention as well. Firstly, the movie is way too fucking long. An hour could have easily been removed and you would have lost nothing. The plot is just a series of fetch quests where they have to get a bunch of random shit that leads to the next random piece of shit until they eventually come across the Dial. These fetch quests are padded with bloated action scenes that just go on far too long and are incredibly boring as they are clearly CGI. The film has so many of these scenes because it's afraid that you will stop paying attention without an explosion happening every 10 minutes. And finally, the ending to this movie is an absolute fucking mess on every metric. From the dialogue to the action to the plot, I'll go into just how bad this is later on in my review. But fuck me, the ending is a load of bollocks. Now it's here where I want to say that the level of CGI they have used to make Harrison Ford look younger looks better to how the CGI layer did in Rogue One.
Well done.
Now with all that said, I'm going to dissect the rotting corpse that is supposed to be the plot. The film opens near the end of World War II with Indiana Jones and his best friend Basil, who we have never seen before and he has never mentioned in any other of the movies. Anyway, they are on a mission to steal an artifact from the Nazis, so they infiltrate the train but find that the artifact is a dud. Luckily for them, Mads is carrying around half a dial created by Archimedes, a scientist who lived in Sicily between the years 300 and 200 BC. He created the dial so that he could locate portals in which people could travel through time. Indiana steals the dial and a big fight breaks out where Indy ends up on the top of the train. Mads tries to get the dial back but ends up getting hit by a metal pole going full speed on a train and somehow he doesn't die. A pole going that fast should have decapitated him, but never mind. Indy and Basil manage to escape the train, and it flash forwards to the present. Indy is now a sad, lonely, miserable loser living alone in a shitty apartment with no family as his wife left him and his son is dead. Now this is exactly what people wanted to see, their beloved childhood hero, a depressed old man who is doing nothing but waiting to die.
What is this shit?
So he goes to work and gives a lecture about Archimedes, to which no one in the classroom knows anything, except a middle-aged woman who answers every question perfectly. Yep, you guessed it. It's here where we are introduced to the unlikable cunt played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
You make me physically sick to my stomach, and I wish that you would get a heart attack.
After class, she asks Indy about the dial he took from her father as he was obsessed over it, and he agrees to show her it. At the same time this is happening, we see that Mads Mikkelsen is in the city and he is after the dial. Before that, he just randomly starts talking to a black waiter about if fighting against the Nazis was worth it.
Why?
Now, despite the fact that the Nazis were defeated over a decade ago, Mads still somehow has Nazi henchmen who are willing to do anything he wants, and they are not even German, so where exactly did he get them from?
I don't know.
So it turns out that Mads is working with the CIA, led by an incredibly annoying black woman who is completely unlikable and doesn't do anything except bitch and moan and talk down to everybody. So they are following Phoebe around as she plans to meet up with Indy, and his men start immediately killing people in the building to leave no witnesses.
Well, that's just silly. Silly, yes. Idiotic, yes.
Once Phoebe gets her hands on the dial, they are confronted by the Nazis. So what does Phoebe do? Well, this bitch decides to trap Indy in the room with them, knowing full well they are willing to hurt him, potentially even kill him for the dial.
Oh, what a bitch!
Indy manages to get away as they are incompetent, but is still being chased by them. He eventually gets a hold of a police horse and rides it down a subway before he boards a train. Now, despite being on horseback, the Nazis almost managed to catch him on feet as they have teleported across the city. This happens a lot in this movie. Time passes and Indy has been framed for the murder of those teachers. Luckily, an actual likeable character comes along to his rescue, Salah. He tells Indy that Phoebe is just amazing and has done lots of amazing stuff.
Pull your tongue out of my arsehole, Gary.
He then says that she plans to auction the dial in Tangier. Now this next part really pissed me off. It's when Salah, a character we all like, says that he wants to go along with Indy and help as he misses going on adventures with him, but Indy tells him no and leaves for Tangier alone. Now this shows us that the people who wrote this know exactly what the audience wants and are refusing to give it to us. They don't let Salah help as they know he would overshadow Phoebe as a better character, because he is. The writers know full well we want an Indy and Salah movie, but would rather trap us with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and her horrible birthmark. So Indy arrives in Tangier and meets up with Phoebe, who is auctioning the dial. Mads then shows up 2 minutes later as he was invited by Phoebe to bid for it.
Now that's a bit of a problem.
Why the fuck did he try to rob the dial in the first place and get Indiana Jones involved? If he had simply not done something that stupid and just paid for it right here, then there wouldn't have been a movie and he would have won. So a fight breaks out and a very long chase scene happens where Mads ends up escaping with half the dial. The clue to the second half of the dial is in the Aegean Sea, and Indy meets up with Antonio Banderas, who is instantly more likeable than Phoebe is, and he helps die for it. As they locate the ship, Indy is attacked by a bunch of eels, so Phoebe has to come to his rescue, which she will do a few more times in this movie. We cut to Mads, who is being flown back to America by the irritating black CIA woman, but thankfully he kills her and turns the plane around.
Oh, thank God.
Mads shows up and takes the tablet, but unfortunately it's in another language, so he needs Phoebe to translate it for him. Now this scene is a joke because she is walking around the entire ship and manages to grab a stick of dynamite and lights it right in front of the Nazis, who somehow cannot see what she is doing. So they use the explosion as a distraction to escape as they steal the boat the Nazis came in. So they leave Mads on a broken ship which has been hit by dynamite and yet somehow isn't sinking. These are minor problems for Mads, because when the group lands in Sicily, he just teleports there and kidnaps Brown Short Round.
No, that doesn't make sense.
He gives up the location to the next piece, and even though they have a head start, they somehow arrive at the ruins much later than Indy and Phoebe do. So they head down into the ruins, and after failing to run away, Brown Short Round is handcuffed to a very large man. He retardedly puts the key in his pocket that Short Brown can easily reach. They then cross a wooden suspension bridge, and they both fall into the river. Luckily though, there happens to be a sewer grate that has a hole just big enough for Brown Short Round to reach through.
Christ, who wrote this?
As he escapes his handcuffs after stealing the key. Back to Indy and Phoebe, they manage to find the other half of the dial, but Mad shows up again to take it from them. They end up getting saved by Brown Short Round, who, after falling down into a river and wandering in absolute darkness, has managed to find a tomb. He ends up saving Phoebe, but Indy gets shot through the shoulder and is once again taken hostage by Mads, who once again doesn't kill him when he has the opportunity.
God, you do this every time!
Mads, who has only been in Sicily for less than a day, is somehow able to summon many more Nazis out of thin air and arranges both an airplane to be used and lots of brand new Nazi uniforms to be made, all on a moment's notice. He's been in America for 10 years, how the fuck has he managed to arrange all this?
That doesn't make any sense!
Mads then tells Indy that his grand plan is to assassinate Hitler before he invades Poland.
This gets fucking worse.
This would not save Nazi Germany, it would cause an enormous power struggle and potential civil war. How exactly is that going to save Nazi Germany?
I don't know.
Anyway, Brown Short Round and Phoebe have followed them to the airport, where she tells him to hotwire and fly a plane, despite the fact that he's only 12 years old. Magically, Brown Short Round is able to do both as he flies the plane after the Nazis.
What a load of bollocks.
At the same time this is happening, Phoebe manages to sneak aboard the plane as they fly into the portal through time. But when they fly through, they are not brought to Nazi Germany but to 2,000 years into the past, where Rome is invading Sicily. When the Romans see two planes flying around, they seem to be pretty calm and just assume them to be dragons, even though the dragon is mowing down lots of Romans with a machine gun. Somehow the Romans are able to land multiple shots on a plane and bring it down.
I find it highly unlikely.
Mads ends up getting killed by Phoebe, as Indy is just a damsel in distress at this point, and the plane crashes into the ground. Archimedes, for some bizarre reason, forgets that his city is under siege and just leaves to go investigate the crash, where he sees Indy and Phoebe parachuting in from the sky and just acts completely normal after seeing two people flying. Indiana Jones, for no reason whatsoever, begs Phoebe Waller-Bridge to leave him in Syracuse and let him bleed out.
Why? Why would you do that?
He has been given the Luke Skywalker treatment, as he is a pathetic loser who wants nothing more than to die for no reason. So Phoebe knocks him out and he just wakes up back at his apartment in America.
This is fucking retarded.
So this film expects us to believe that Brown Short Round somehow landed the plane safely in the middle of a siege where there are no runways, then took off with Indy, somehow crossed the Atlantic and brought Indy back to his room before he could wake up.
That's fucking stupid!
Indy is then visited by his estranged wife and they get back together for absolutely no reason, and with that the movie ends.
It's a piece of shit.
This is supposed to be a happy ending, but what the movie forgot to resolve is that Indy is still wanted for murder. So this so-called happy ending is just going to be him ending up in prison until the day he dies.
That was terrible.
This movie was a piece of shit, and it was designed that way because it had a mission to destroy Indiana Jones in order to replace him with his much cheaper and less talented co-star, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Now, luckily for us, since the movie looks like it's going to be an enormous flop, it's highly unlikely that we are going to see his shitty spin-off show. Lucasfilm has shown clear malice and hatred of their own IPs and have destroyed them one by one until they have nothing left. Kathleen Kennedy is an example of someone who has put her own ego and agenda above the needs of the franchises, and as a result, her reign has been an unmitigated disaster. But despite all evidence pointing to her failure, she will not be blamed for this, as no matter how much she fails, people in Hollywood will continue to stick their tongues up her arse and tell her how great she is. Fuck Lucasfilm, fuck Kathleen Kennedy, and fuck everyone who wrote this disaster.